Shortly after I started teaching high school theater, I was in northern Wisconsin in some little town, the name of which escapes me, with my best friend. And we went into a Ben Franklin, five and dime. Nobody knows what those are anymore. And they were giving away free reproductions of a Currier and Ives print. And boy, was it evocative for me. It was the woods at night with snow, and in the middle was this little cabin, and the windows glowing golden with the light coming out, and a little Christmas wreath on the door, even a sleigh and horses outside. Well, I grew up in the woods of Wisconsin, in a very little house with a lot of family, and Christmas was definitely the best time of the year for us. We even had the horses, not the sleigh, which I always wanted, but we didn't have. So I was thinking, this is a no-brainer. I'm going to take the poster and hang it in my classroom because it's free. And then I remembered, no, that's a wreath, and that's Christmassy, and we don't do that in the Madison schools. So I couldn't do that. But then I realized there was something much more important for me to be thinking about with this print, and that was most of the kids in my classes don't know anything about the woods at night in the snow. They're city kids. They're black and white and Latino and Asian, and this is my culture. This is my Wisconsinite rural background. It's almost embarrassing to say, but that was one of my first, albeit small, cultural epiphanies. As I began my teaching career, I spent a lot of time feeling uncomfortable with my students. I always sort of was outside myself, sort of censoring what I was saying to make sure I wouldn't say the wrong thing, which I did, of course, often. And there were those moments when someone would say something in class and everybody would freeze. And there it would be, that big elephant in the middle of the room that we weren't supposed to talk about. And I never knew what to do about it, and it always made me incredibly uncomfortable. Now, I probably didn't look any more uncomfortable than any other white teacher from the country in Wisconsin in front of classes of kids from all over the world, but I felt awful. Every day I worked with kids from worlds I knew nothing about. Every day I would replay conversations I had had with Asian kids and East Indian kids and black kids over and over. And I would try to figure out what I had said that was awful and how not to do that again. Now, the first part wasn't that difficult because I could see their faces and their reactions to it. The second part, I had no idea how to do. I figured most of the white kids in my classes were probably feeling at least some of the same feelings I was. But here's the ridiculous thing. I didn't even know how to begin to deal with it. And then one day, I very carefully articulated my dilemma in one of my classes and was met with silence. And after class, one very shy black girl came up to me and said, "Maybe you're not asking the right questions." And then she left. Well, it was at least obvious that I needed help from the kids who didn't look anything like me and didn't sound anything like me. But how was I going to do that? What if I, said something that was incredibly racist? But there was no getting around it. I had to do something. I had to start somewhere. So, in spite of the stark terror that I felt, I started asking one day. I mean, seriously, my stomach was in a knot. I was shaking. I was sweating. My heart was beating. But I did it. I asked a couple of questions. And lo and behold, these kids who don't look anything like me answered me with grace and elegance and a sense of humor and a whole lot of patience. They clearly wanted to talk about it, and they were really pleased that I was asking. So there was a girl in one of my classes, and I asked for a reaction to a documentary about race and television in America. And she wrote afterwards that documentaries like that always made her feel incredibly uncomfortable because she had nothing in common with those people. She wasn't a Southern black person with a hose pointed at her. She and her family had no idea what that was about. And what's more, she didn't really want a bunch of white kids apologizing to her for it. So there I was, having been rude, or at least clueless once again. But it had begun. I now began to viscerally understand, as best a white woman from rural Wisconsin can, a little piece of somebody else's world. Then I had this idea. If I use theater, which I know, as a tool, and make up sketches with my high school kids and tour them to elementary and middle schools, I would learn something. And the kids in the class would learn something. And the kids in the audience, as well as their teachers, would learn something. This was a great idea. And that's how Multico started in 1997, because I was so uncomfortable with the kids of color in my classes that I had to do something. I think that one of the reasons that Multico works is that there is nothing contrived about it. There's no adult telling these teenagers what to think or what to feel. And each of us in the group, teacher and students, go through the same process together. We learn about each other, we create theater, and then through that we teach thousands of kids. I act as a catalyst. I bring them ideas about the subjects of race and ethnicity and culture, and they bring their own knowledge with them, and they sort it all into something concrete through their own lenses. They create art through which they tell their own stories. What could be more authentic? They find their own voices, and that to me is important. On the first day of the semester, I asked the kids to write their name on the board and pronounce it for us a couple of times, and tell us how they define themselves, which is more difficult than you think, because nobody really ever asks. Andrew asked me what he should say. Well, that's up to you, I said. But I don't know, he said. I was born in South America. I was raised by a white family in Madison. I don't speak Spanish, and all my friends are white. And everybody that I don't know assumes I'm Latino and I speak Spanish. Well, maybe you'll figure it out this semester, I said. And 6 weeks later, he was introducing himself as Latino. And he and the rest of the Latino kids in the group wrote a sketch about people making incorrect assumptions about each other. At the beginning of the performance, in fact, every kid introduces himself using whatever definition they like. Some of them have a hard time identifying with their own ethnicity, their own race. And like Matt, whose mother was white, is, I'm sure, still white. And his very absent American Indian dad, who we never talked about, and halfway through the tour, started introducing himself as white and American Indian. And there's Karimba, who is from India, and started wearing the bindi, the little dot on the forehead, but only after the kids in Multico told her that it was beautiful. During a performance years ago, James, a Hmong boy who was named by the doctor who delivered him in California, came on stage and introduced himself in his language, which we had all, agreed was a good idea. And when he did, this little kid, probably 6, in the front row, gasped and went like this and put his hands over his heart, and he sat there like this for the entire rest of the 30-minute performance. Now, James knew that was going to happen. I did not. So there was another moment when we all learned something. One year, a note about James, He came to the 10-year reunion from Multico and announced that he is now a social worker, which he said he knew he could do because of what he learned in Multico about himself. One year, the Asian kids got angry and said we were ignoring them. We had no sketches about them. And that started a discussion about cultural expectations and how limiting they can be. So the Asian kids wrote a sketch about how they couldn't think of a sketch that didn't involve a cultural expectation of Asians. I'm especially proud of the gay kids in Multico who come out in Multico. That takes a leap of faith. It is high school, after all. The last couple of kids who did it got cheers and applause. I've made many mistakes. I've hurt kids' feelings. Kids have hurt my feelings. But we have a couple of basic rules in Multico. One, don't assign offense to what people say without investigation. And two, keep going until you understand each other. You don't have to agree, but you need to understand each other. And both of those work most of the time. Now, skip ahead 14 years. Multico has performed for about 30 schools a year. Hundreds of teachers, tens of thousands of kids have watched these high school kids tell the truth on stage. And selfishly, the best part, I don't get scared anymore. I remember the way the terror felt, but I don't feel it anymore. The hundreds of Multico kids have taught me how to talk about touchy subjects with kids that are all different colors. And if I do get just a little uncomfortable, I know I've hit on an issue that I need to work on. And I do, because I know I can. Someone asked me once to make a list of the basic things that one needs to think about in order to talk about issues of race when you're white. And here it is. Number one, begin by knowing who you are culturally. White is more than just a color. Number two, ask questions. Most everyone likes to talk about his or her culture. Number three, assume that you are going to misunderstand often. Don't be afraid to say, or number four, don't be afraid to say you're sorry. Number five, the purpose of communication is understanding, not necessarily agreement. Number six, if we name the things that have power over us, race and racism, culture, ethnicity, those things lose some of their power over us. Number seven, being uncomfortable with people who don't look like you and don't talk like you, and making assumptions about people based on color and culture is never going to go away completely. It's part of who we are. It's supposed to be. After all, fear of the other is all tied up with species and self-preservation. Number eight, realize that you will never understand racism completely, ever. And number nine, white people in the United States get to go home and forget about it. I had coffee with an alum, Tara, just a few days ago, and she's on her way to work with a social justice group in Africa. And, last week I watched a new TV show, Harry's Law, and one of my former students was on it, he had a little part. There are probably 10 or 15 Multico kids who are trying to work towards careers as working actors, which is quite the challenge. Ignacio just finished a play at the Kennedy Center in Washington and is probably going to go back to Chile to try his luck in the Spanish-speaking theater world. Pira is in law school, a lot of them are in grad school, and Elsa has just become a history teacher. A questionable choice these days. She subs for me, which I love because I know we're on the same page. Yewan has gone to Korea to see what the culture is like that her parents left. Sarah had a terrible time in Teach for America. Melinda sells me books at Barnes & Nobles, and Matt is the manager of a pizza franchise. Jacob's a musician in Minneapolis. The list is long. I've met lots of their spouses and their babies. We keep in touch on Facebook, and a good number of them call me when they're in town. All of them are different because they were in Multico. Together, we made a safe place to learn, to create, and to teach, all in one semester, and it changed all of us. On the last day of the semester, I always tell the kids that they now have the responsibility to keep working on this stuff for the rest of their lives. I tell them to think about each other when they see racism and bigotry in the world. Imagine that we are all standing next to you, I tell them, because we are. It's easier for me, I know, because I do Multico again every year. It's center stage for me every year. I'm not scared anymore. but I can see that other people still are. And that's the issue, isn't it? How do we as a country stop being scared of each other? I lucked out, I found a way. And I now refuse to allow that huge elephant in the middle of the room to just sit there without talking about it, why it's there, and how we can work together to get it out of the room. Thank you.